2 months ago when, I don't know what Mamdani was at then, like 10% or something. And Hasan like went over to New York to talk to him. Pretty cool. Pretty cool, Hasan, 2 months ago to do. Like this is what you would expect progressive media. This is what progressive media would do, is like way ahead of time before it becomes like a mainstream news story and they're like forced to cover it to have any kind of legitimacy. He like Breakfast Club, let's say, like Breakfast Club is losing viewers at this point if they don't have Zohran on, because it's just like, what do you guys like? Are you guys even trying to keep up the facade of being progressive? Like, or are you just like giving up on even seeming like you might be, right? It's like that kind of thing. And I get it in terms of like, it's best as from a business point of view. Let's wait until Mamdani gets popular and then let's interview him, because that will get us that will get us more clicks than if we interview him when he's still like a little unknown being or whatever, right? Like I get that there's like business incentives to wait till late to do that, but also if you're something like the Breakfast Club or the Midas Touch, like you're big enough that you can kind of set the narrative. Like you don't wait for things to be popular. You can kind of popularize things yourself, So just like this is what progressive leadership in media looks like. I'm gonna give a little subscribe to Hasan here, but let's just watch this because I didn't watch this before. I watched a little bit of it and I was like, this is pretty cool. But anyway, himbo, they're both hot. Let's be real, they're both hot. Himbo, non-himbo. Let's see how they interact.
Beyond.
I think that Indians are the Italians of Asia.
I don't even know what that means, but okay.
Do you not feel that?
I don't know where to go with that one, so I'm just okay. Yes.
Okay. All right.
I agree. I've always said that. Indians are the Italians of Asia.
And Italians are the Indians of Europe.
Okay.
I don't think there's another way I can go with it, but I think those are the two flips.
What about Zohran?
How's it going, sir?
It's going pretty good. This is my first time in Queens, and yeah, I'm excited to be out here for the occasion. Zohran Mamdani, everybody, running for New York mayor, gonna win the New York mayoral race, yes, hopefully, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Zohran, you're a busy guy. You're all over the place. You had a rally earlier today.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It went well. It was a rally for a rent freeze with tenants in Sunset Park, with incredible city councilwoman Alexa Avila, Assemblymember Marcelo Matenas, and a bunch of tenants who are tired of seeing their landlords profit while their rents keep going up.
What made you want to run for mayor?
I think ultimately it was that there's a cost of living crisis in our city, and Eric Adams has used almost every opportunity to exacerbate that crisis. He has put his thumb on the scale of corporations, of landlords, and New Yorkers have been paying for it, and they've been priced out of the city that they built. We can actually change that.
That's right. Well, also, I do have to mention, you know how like when PBS does when they do a story on Facebook, they'll be like, we're funded by Facebook. Yeah. As a Turkish person, I have to say,
I'm actually really worried about this interview.
Yeah, as a Turkish person, I have to say, Eric Adams is our guy, okay? And he represents my interest.
Eric Adams took a bribe from the Turkish government. That's the joke. If we didn't, just to like, because it was a while ago, but obviously these two remember it and are laughing about it. This was also 2 months ago, so I guess it's a little more recent. But I think it was like either early this year or late last year. Eric Adams just like took a massive random bribe. I forget what they even did. They did some kind of weird like. Did they like cure his baldness or I don't know? They did some expensive procedure on him and like gave him gifts for no reason. It's like, what's going on here? This is very obvious corruption. So anyway, they're making a joke like that. Hasan is Turkish, so he's saying, oh, Eric Adams represents me because he took money from the Turkish government. Okay, very funny, Hasan.
And I'm actually here to extract concessions from you, similar to what Eric Adams gave to the Turkish government.
Look, I'm making a pledge now that when I get a hair transplant, there's only one place I'm going.
Okay, perfect.
But I'm paying for it.
Okay,
I'm paying for it.
All right,
but I'm getting it.
Depending on what we can do with the fire code, we can make that a real.
Where we are right now is totally up to code.
I'm joking. It's a joke. Okay, so you're 33 years old.
I'm 33 years old.
Yeah,
33.
We're the same age, which is crazy because
go.
I'm a loser and you're running for mayor in New York. That's wild. that like 33-year-olds are running for mayor of New York.
Here we are.
Yeah. And you're, according to the latest polls, you're in the second place. It's ranked choice, so it's a little bit different. Do you mind explaining that process to our viewers?
Absolutely. So this is the second election for New York City mayor that has ranked choice voting. What that means is that New Yorkers get 5 options, and they put in their options, their first place choice up to their 5th place choice. And if your first place choice is eliminated, then your vote goes to your second place, and so on and so forth, until there's someone who has received more than 50% of New Yorkers' votes.
Yeah.
And last time around, Eric Adams won the race with about 7,000 votes in a city of 8.5 million people.
Yeah.
And by the final round, only 40% of New Yorkers' votes were counted because people hadn't filled out their whole ballot.
They just kind of gave up.
They're just like, I'm voting for 1, I'm voting for 2, that's enough. I mean, I've had uncles come up to me in the mosque and be like, I'm voting for you and nobody else. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're voting for me, you're voting for the rest of your ballot, and you're not ranking Andrew Cuomo.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good for people to know.
Pro tip: if you're doing ranked choice voting, rank the whole ballot. You don't like only rank part of the ballot. And this is a good
for that
example.
reason,
This is
it's a
Exhibit
unique
A.
predicament. It's a ranked choice situation. Andrew Cuomo entertained running for a little bit, for quite a while, as a matter of fact. And I think the media, given his like institutional backing, was teasing that alongside him. And he has a lot of name recognition. Do you feel like name recognition is one of the major hurdles you have to clear in this race?
Yeah, I also think it's a major opportunity because right now the polls are just a reflection of that recognition. Love him or hate him, you know who Andrew Cuomo is. And we're in second place. Still, more than 50% of New Yorkers do not know who I am. And that means we can just keep doing the hard work of introducing ourselves. And actually, it's easier to introduce yourself to someone than convince them to feel differently about you. And that's where Andrew Cuomo has an obstacle, that everyone knows who he is, but still, with 100% name recognition, he has not surpassed 50% in support. There's more than 50% of New Yorkers who want someone else. And now it's our job to introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
One Twitch stream at a time.
Yeah, well, this is probably the least important part of that process, because I feel like you're doing a lot in terms of door knocking. You have a lot of people who are very excited for you, and that's a really good thing. And also, it does seem like the establishment picks in the race are kind of experiencing a bunch of fissures amongst themselves. Now, Eric Adams is choosing to run as an independent, from what I understand.
Yeah, my man's out.
Yeah, so do you feel like that's a good move, or do you feel like that's a better for your chances overall or worse overall?
I don't think it affects our chances much. We've always said we were running against Eric Adams' second term, and Andrew Cuomo is running for that. He's running for the same vision, same donors, same corruption. Now it's just clear that he is the one messenger of that vision of a New York City where people are profiting off of others' misery. And what we are fighting for is just as clear as it was day one, the New York City people can afford.
What are some of the top line agenda items that you have first day in?
All right, here we go. First of all, no more Turkish Airlines corruption.
Okay.
No disrespect to your people.
That's a bit of a bummer because I was a single issue voter.
Yeah.
I'm going to illegally vote in the race for you.
Making it very clear.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now.
Do not do that. The number one thing is cost of living. The number one thing is to make the city affordable. And the number one cost in New Yorkers' life when they're thinking about that is housing. About 2.5 million New Yorkers live in rent-stabilized housing across New York City. Their rent increases are set by the mayor. This mayor has jacked their rent up 9%. I would freeze their rent for close to 2.5 million people. I would make the slowest buses in the country fast and free in our city, make them a model for this nation, and I would deliver universal childcare to New Yorkers, whether they're 6 weeks or 5 years of age. And ultimately, it's using every tool the public sector has to make the city people can afford.
Yeah. There's also, from what I understand, there's a lot of opinions on the issue of housing. You got YIMBYs on the one side, yes in my backyarders, who consistently advocate for deregulation and dezoning, and there's some truth to that, for sure, in terms of how much of a hurdle that is for developing new housing projects. And then you have the NIMBYs on the other side, who also have some opinions on this matter. But I feel like there's one issue that I don't hear a lot of coverage on.
You're like a HIMBY.
I don't know what I would be. I just want public housing.
Okay,
I want Austrian style,
Yeah.
red Vienna. 65% of the entire city is just peppered with government housing. That's what I want. Don't know if we're going to get that. I feel like if I even say that, a real estate developer is going to drone strike me as I walk out of this.
We got 5 minutes
of this institution. Yeah. But I do think that any move in that direction is great. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there's also, from what I understand, a warehousing problem here, where approximately 75,000 units that are rent-controlled units in the city are purposely being kept away from the housing market. There's a bunch of different hurdles in front of the lottery system and like how inaccessible even rent-controlled units are overall. Is there anything Is that a real issue? Am I making this up?
No, I think, look,
Is there any way to tackle that?
Right now, the way that it works is that landlords self-report the units that they're warehousing.
Yeah.
And obviously there are limitations to the efficacy of self-reporting something that you are doing, especially when you're a landlord taking a unit off the market. I've seen estimates that start in the mid 20,000 range with units. And I think what we have to do is the city has to take a much more muscular role in gathering that information and in finding out what is the reason why units are offline and what's the actual cost of bringing them back online. Because without that data, it just becomes the discourse where a landlord will say, it's too expensive to do so, trust me. And we actually need to be able to see the stats. And to your point, we need a ton more housing in New York City. I do believe we have to build, more density around transit hubs. We have to end requirements to build parking when we build housing, upzone wealthier neighborhoods. And I also think the public sector has a role to build immediately affordable housing. Right? Last year, we opened up a wait list in New York City for people to get assistance paying their rent. In 7 days, 600,000 New Yorkers applied. And at the end of that period, 200,000.
A lot of broke boys.
A lot of broke boys and broke girls and broke uncles and aunties.
Yeah.
And at the end of that period, 200,000 won, which basically meant they got on a wait list for a program that admits 250 people a month. It's a totally broken system.
Oh my God.
And so what we're saying is alongside
What the hell? A 200,000 person waiting list that admits 250 people a month?
Cater to a median household
What the
income
hell?
of that of New Yorkers, $72,000 for a family of 4.
That's a
There's
joke.
obviously the issue of public-private partnership when we have this conversation to begin with, but I don't know what
That's
the limitations are as
insane.
far as the New York
It's
mayor.
gonna take 800
the mayoral
months to
position
do that
of,
waiting list if no one else
maybe not eminent
joins.
domain, but,
Well, and there's a lot of power.
but pushing and pulling. Yeah, what are the levers of power that you have?
Even now, under Eric Adams, the city has the authority to take over a building that is owned by a landlord who's been operating in violation to city code. He doesn't use that power. They don't use those tools. But that is absolutely an existing program that's existed even for prior administrations. And that is something we would use. We would increase fines for dangerous conditions. We would increase them for immediately hazardous ones. And if you're a landlord who isn't abiding by that, we would take that building and give it back to the tenants who are currently living through those conditions.
Okay, walk me through this. I call my landlord. I'm like, the microwave is not working. Landlord says, I'll fix it. Doesn't fix it for a month. Eminent domain. Yes or no?
No, that's not how it works. Because first of all, most New Yorkers don't even have their landlord sell.
Okay.
A lot of New Yorkers live in buildings that are owned by LLCs. They have no idea who owns the building.
Even better. I call up the apartment property manager and they don't fix it. Okay. I come in, I say, hey, this electric circuit is broken.
Yeah.
They come in and they just paint white over it. They say, that's not a circuit anymore. That's just the wall. Eminent domain. Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
But here's how it works.
I'm going to keep testing the water.
Here's how it works. You have a system right now where you call 311, right, in New York City. Most New Yorkers who've ever called 311 have had a pretty frustrating experience with it. We are proposing a world-class, brand new innovation.
Eminent domain means that it just means public seizure of private property. He's saying like landlord doesn't fix something, city immediately seizes the property. And Zohran's like, no, we're not. I like it though. This is genuinely like interviewing him from the left, like, and in like a mostly joking way, but like, like testing the boundaries, I like it. I like what Hasan's doing here.
Where you can make appointments with investigators so that you know when they're actually coming home.
Seems radical.
Seems pretty radical. Seems pretty crazy, but you heard it here first. You're actually going to know when an investigator comes by. And what we will track is if a landlord is found in violation to the code and they are not following up on those violations, they're not rectifying it, then there will be a time at which the city will take over that building.
Okay, I like that. So there is a takeover happening eventually if they're serial violators.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm a fan of that.
It's not going to be for the microwave, but
Yeah, no, it's fine. That's just a random experience. I don't know. I'm just bringing that up. Okay, so housing is obviously a major issue. Let's talk about public transit. I'm a little bit autistic. I'm an enjoyer of public transit. I haven't been able to enjoy it here because I'm streaming, so there's no Wi-Fi down there.
What about the bus?
Yeah, well, like I said, I've been here for a limited time. So, what are your suggestions for improvement? Where are the areas of need for public transit in New York?
I would say the areas are around affordability, reliability, accessibility. Those are some of the major areas, and generally the sense that
How many more cops are we getting in the MTA?
We are not getting more cops.
I lied. I said I was a single issue voter. I'm a double issue voter.
Look, I think what New Yorkers deserve is to be safe.
Song's
And for
such
too
a
long,
shit
we've
talker.
had so-called leaders who've told them the same proposals they've been given year after year, only to end up with the same results. And for safety, we've put together a proposal to create a Department of Community Safety, the DCS, which would protect New Yorkers like never before, and it would do it in ways that we've already seen be proven successful. Things like dedicated outreach teams placed on 100 different subway stations, the ones that have the highest levels of mental health crises, homelessness.
Are they going to play Candy Crush?
They're not going to play Candy
Okay,
Crush.
well, I feel like that's been working so far. It's
Yeah,
been very effective.
They're not going to be playing Candy Crush.
Okay.
And this is going to be paired with, if you grew up in New York City, there are a lot of
See, Hassan can do satire. He just can't understand what others are doing.
I first lived in Morningside Heights. I would take the 1 train down to 96th, then take the 2 train down to Times Square. I'd walk up the stairs, down the stairs. There would always be a record store that was selling CDs, headphones. That's at Times Square. That's gone now. It's just a vacant commercial unit. So as part of this proposal, we're going to transform that unit, make it a place where you can receive medical care, connections to long-term care, and in tandem with all those things, invest in transit ambassadors. Because a lot of people, the help that they want in the moment is just somebody who can answer a question that they have. What's the delay that they're facing on the subway line that they're trying to take? How can they actually get out? What escalator is working? What elevator is working? This is something that they deserve someone to actually answer those questions who's trained and tasked with those exact responsibilities.
He won't be playing Candy Crush.
No, they will not.
No one is playing Candy Crush. I'm confused because I feel like that's what the government, like that's what public services are supposed to do at the subway stations with guns. But I guess, are they going to have guns?
These are not going to have guns.
Damn it. Okay.
But just to your question about public transit, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I love most about being a New Yorker is public transit. That we can get around this city on a bus.
One of the only cities that has well, there's some, but this is the one that has like the most.
I mean, 40% of public transit trips in America are from the MTA.
Yeah.
Wow.
40%. It's all right here across these 5 boroughs and surrounding counties.
It's not good.
And
I mean, good for New York, but what the hell? What's going on with the other cities?
And they're also, if they can't afford it, they're sitting on that platform waiting for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And if they're waiting for a bus, I mean, you look at a bus time app on your phone, it says the bus is going to be there in 20 minutes. Sometimes it just never even appears. So these are things that don't actually have to be this way. That's what we're going to do when we make buses fast and free.
How do you reinstill confidence in even local government like that? Because I feel like this is a major hurdle to clear for anyone that is even remotely to the left of, I guess, Donald Trump. When you talk about the government doing something, the government doing right by you, I feel like especially accelerated since the Reagan era, there's this attitude from the average American that like, there's not really anything that these guys are doing for us. Like, do you have an attitude? Is it just, show your work and hopefully people eventually believe that the subway stations are going to be clean and the buses are going to run on time?
I think you have to show your work. You have to actually deliver it, because the reason people don't believe in government is that they haven't seen it actually impact their lives in a positive way in a long time. And there's one recent example we have in congestion pricing, which was a program that was said to, once implemented, would decrease congestion, would increase bus speeds, would reduce emissions, would raise money for the MTA. And just at the point at which it was about to be implemented, it was at a very low level of popularity, which is the same thing that happened with similar schemes in Stockholm and London. But once it came into effect, you had people who were previously in opposition starting to support it because they could actually experience those tangible benefits. Now, I think that kind of program still needs to be paired with more immediate investments in public transit service, and that's what I've been fighting for in Albany as a state legislator.
So you don't want the bridge and tunnel crowd around these parts. That's what I'm getting. I'm kidding.
Room for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. One thing that I feel like you do differently than a lot of other politicians is you talk about the underlying reasons as to why crime persists. When you talk about homelessness, you understand that a big part of that is housing. As a matter of fact, the major role that it plays in accelerating homelessness. When talking about crime, your initiatives focus on also solving the underlying material inequalities where crime manifests. What are some of the initiatives that you want to take in that regard in terms of like, you've suggested cooperative grocery stores, for example?
Yeah, I mean, we are living in a city where so many New Yorkers are being priced out of produce. And it doesn't matter how much they earn, they feel this sticker shock when they go to the grocery store. And we have that in tandem with food deserts, which are something that disproportionately impacts Black and Latino New Yorkers. I represent Queensbridge Houses, the largest public housing development in North America. And when I speak to my constituents at Queensbridge, I'm asked this question: why is it that there are 6 fast food restaurants in a 5-block radius, but the only place I can buy produce is clearly old and outdated and not the kind of food that is fit for my family to eat? And I don't have an answer to that. And this is now starting to answer that question, which is that if it can work in Kansas, if a feasibility study in Chicago found this to be doable, why in New York City are we allowing people to be priced out of bread and milk and eggs when we can actually guarantee cheaper prices, especially at a time when we're seeing these prices skyrocket even more thanks to Donald Trump's economic policies?
Yeah. What about Twinkies? Are they going to still have Twinkies at the cooperative grocery stores?
Yeah, thanks to you now, we can say there are going to be some Twinkies.
I lied. I'm a triple issue voter. Not even a single issue.
By the end of today, we got 10.
Okay.
10 issues coming up.
All right, so Twinkies in the cooperative grocery stores. How does that structure work?
The Twinkies in the cooperative?
No.
Okay. Just like,
sometimes I'm joking. Sometimes I'm being serious. How does the cooperative grocery structure work?
So what
Those of you at home that might not be familiar.
So the idea of a municipal-owned grocery store, our proposal is a pilot of 1 in each borough. That would...
Also, can I just say both of these guys are just like really good in front of the camera. They're just like both really comfortable and really good at articulating, and they're good at like looking at the camera, addressing the like. This is just like I don't think they have necessarily like public like media training or whatever, but they're both perfect in front of the camera. It's like a master class on how you do media. And I just like them sitting here, two socialists, just, I won't say shooting the shit, but like it feels like that at the same time as they're giving an interview, which is great. It's a good vibe.
Be city run that would guarantee cheaper groceries in a few ways. The first is that it would not have to pay rent or property taxes to the city-owned institution, pass those savings directly on.
Oh, imagine, guys. Imagine cooperative grocery stores owned by the city. They don't pay rent. They don't pay taxes. They're not in it for profits. They're in it to give the local people food. To sell the peoples who need food, which is all the people, some food. Think about that. Think about like how much easier and better it is. Cause like, for example, grocery stores have all this food waste, right? There's like way more food than we need to feed everyone, right? We have like 3 times the food that we need to feed everyone, but a lot of people still go hungry. And part of that is because private grocery stores are afraid of legal liabilities and potential financial penalties that come along with those if like they give food away that's like expired, or like they basically like lock down all their food that's like gonna expire or whatever so that nobody can get to it. They like put locks literally on their dumpsters so that people can't like get the food there, kind of thing. None of that happens with a cooperative grocery store because it's owned by the city. You're not afraid of like, are we gonna get like sued for like the whole system can be managed so much better that way. Never mind, like they're about to talk about the difference in prices. But this is like this is one of the parts of his campaign that I honestly wish he talked about a little more, because I just feel like it's such a good, like, especially nowadays, everyone is complaining about the cost of food. Like everyone complains about that. Like, why wouldn't you, like, I don't know. That's like such an obvious thing to me. Yeah, let's have cooperative grocery stores. Like we don't need fucking Walmart and Whole Foods to like make a profit off of us eating. We can organize our own grocery stores. Thank you very much. So I just love this.
On to the customer. The second is that it would not be mandated to have to make a profit in these moments. We've seen that in Kansas, it is profitable, but also there are times where you will see the avian flu is jacking up the cost of eggs to a level that New York...
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes these cooperative grocery stores actually bring in tax revenue. They don't lose, they charge cheap prices, but they're still able to bring in tax revenue overall in a lot of cases. But they're not as affected. They don't have to like up their prices because of something like bird flu or something, whatever's happening.
Can't even afford. It is possible for us to absorb some of those costs.
There's also a mosquito buzzing around me. This
and additionally,
where to go?
Would purchase at wholesale prices and then pass.
Why is there a mosquito in here
now,
also?
This is a pilot program that would cost $60 million, which sounds like a substantial amount of money.
Maybe not for New York.
Not for New York City.
Yeah.
I would compare it to the more than 100.
It's like one New York Police Department submarine. It's a
submarine?
For 1 year. Just,
No, does the NYPD have submarines? I'm looking that up right now. Submarine. No, they don't. They don't. Okay, they have drone submarines. They have drone submarines. They don't have manned submarines, okay? They have... It's more dystopian than that. They have submarines, but they're not employing anyone. Okay, great.
Not using the sub.
Allegedly.
Is that alleged? I thought they had one.
I'm leaving that to you. That's your number 4 policy platform.
Okay. I want to see the submarine. That's my 4th policy.
But right now we're already set to spend $140 million subsidizing corporate grocery stores. It's a program in the city called City Fresh. They don't guarantee cheaper prices. They don't guarantee a unionized workforce. They are not required to accept SNAP or WIC, and they've been shown no impact on actual pricing.
They don't even have SNAP.
They don't have to accept.
Not accepting SNAP is insane in the US if you're a grocery store and you're getting subsidies from the government. But also that's the other thing about it is these cooperative grocery stores are they're worker co-ops, as in like the workers like elect control their management, like, you know, decide cooperatively on their wages and wage increases and all. Like, it's not just better for the consumer, it's definitely way better for the workers too. Like, there's no reason to not have cooperative grocery stores. There's no like, even if you talk to somebody who's in finance, the very first thing somebody in finance will say about like the food industry, somebody who's into investing, whatever, the first thing they'll say is, oh, that's a low margin industry. Like that industry doesn't get good returns. So like, we're not gonna like, it's kind of a waste to like invest in like a restaurant or a grocery store or someone that makes food, because like the returns versus like the returns on software or something, right? Where like you make the software and then your cost is like pretty close to zero and you can keep just selling the software, right? Versus like food, you have to buy the food. Even poor people need food, so you have to buy the food and then sell the food to poor people and everything. You know, you have to store it and you market it and all this other stuff you have to do. And it's like there's a margin with grocery stores, but it's not a big margin. And grocery stores trying to, in 2025, grocery stores still trying to have a big profit margin on their food. Like, this is the thing. It's not even like the grocery store people are like consciously being evil, like, oh, let's like increase the price of bread and eggs so that people can't afford to eat her. Like, that's not what's happening. What's happening is their board of directors, the owners of the company, are basically saying like, hey, like, if we want people to buy our stock, if we want people to invest in this company, we have to show big returns. And those same investors on the market, it's like, do I want to invest in like a grocery store, or do I want to invest in like Palantir or like TikTok or like whatever, right? There's a million other things, oil. There's a million other things that have a much crypto. I don't know. There's so many other things that you could put your money towards that you know have a way higher chance of having a higher return. But grocery stores, by virtue of being on the private market, or by vice of being on the private market, they have to compete with those same other industries that are way higher return. So what grocery stores are forced to do is figure out, how are we going to squeeze higher returns out of this inelastic thing? Like, you can only sell so much food. People only need so much food. So what are your choices then? Jack up the prices or underpay your workers. Those are the only two ways that a grocery store can make more money. The only, and let's be serious, like, and let's be clear, I should say, is that the board of directors, the owners of the company, are legally obligated to maximize their profits as a publicly traded company. They have a legal obligation to do everything in their power to try to maximize the profitability of the company. It's a legal requirement to do that. And the only way you can do that in a really low margin, inelastic, meaning you can only sell so much food, people only need so much food, the only way that you can increase your profits is by jacking up prices, like I said, or by underpaying workers. So the fact that in 2025 we still have private for-profit grocery stores is killing us. It's literally killing some people, I'm sure, but metaphorically it's killing all of us. At very least, it's killing our wallets, right? So like, at every level, the cooperative grocery store is just like a way better solution. And I like, this was 2 months ago, and I'm surprised I haven't seen it as a bigger part of Zohran's campaign, because I think like there's just so much potential there, and it's just like such a common sense. Like, you could say like, oh, that's communism, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, it's common sense. Like, that's what it is. Like, there's no salient argument against it at this point.
They don't have to accept it. That's
and
crazy.
so we would spend less than half of that money on guaranteeing the whole kinds of needs that New Yorkers have that are currently not being met by this program.
And there would be workers at these locations as well?
A unionized workforce.
So unionized workforce?
Yeah. And this would be a pilot program, start with one in each borough. And what we're already hearing from New Yorkers is that they can't wait for this, because, as we've seen in a poll, it is a majority of New Yorkers who want this. And I think even a majority of Republicans.
Yeah, I saw the Data for Progress poll that you recently posted. It said, what was it, 60% of Republicans, I think, even? Or majority of Republicans were on board with it. Seems like a good idea. Okay.
60% of Republicans,
what are some of the other
60% of Republican voters want cooperative grocery stores. And yet, you will never see Barack Obama. You will never see Joe Biden. You will never see Kamala Harris. You will never see Alyssa Slotkin, who they're trying to promote as like some kind of head. You'll never see Hakeem Jeffries. You'll never see Chuck Schumer. You'll never see Nancy Pelosi talk about and like even mention it. When it's such a fucking like, same as Medicare for all, same as just let's have public health care, let's have healthcare be free at the point of service. Let's do a single payer system where like the public company is the only insurance company and doesn't rip people off and doesn't try to deny people care, like and just like saves a whole shitload of money in the process. Like these are all no-brainer policies that even the majority of Republicans, it's like palatable to them. And for some reason, I mean, not for some reason, the Democrats don't support it. The mainstream Democrats don't support that kind of thing because of their donors, because they have corporate donors and they don't want to be seen as like the people who do scary decommodification, who do scary like public service. Like just the concept of a public service is scary. That's how far right we've gone, is that like if you try to run something as a public service, you're like a traitor to the country, and all the corporations and big donors will pull their money. Basically, that's what the Democrats are scared of, and they won't talk about things even when they're so obviously politically advantageous. They're scared to even mention it. They would run away. Like you could ask Nancy Pelosi about a cooperative grocery store and you'd literally see her running away. Like I'm not joking. I think she'd actually like walk, like she can't run. She's like 90 years old, but she'd like do a little scuttle away from the camera and the microphone because she doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to like scare her donors, and that's all they fucking care about. And half their donors are Trump supporters. It's like, and not just like average Trump supporters either, like billionaires, like billionaire tech moguls. It's like their fear and their control, the control of those people, the influence of those people, and the apparent need to have all this money in politics. That's the reason that they won't talk about these things. And it's so this kind of shit's really refreshing because it's like, wow, we're actually talking about issues. We're actually talking about good policies. We're actually like discussing good ideas. You know, Hasan's not just here to be like, how will you oppose Trump? Because we all know Trump is really bad. How will you, like, they're talking like that's a given. They're not gonna, I don't think they'll probably mention, maybe they'll mention Trump at some point. I don't think they'll mention it this whole time. I think they're going to mention like I think they're going to keep talking about policies, and I like it. I love it.
In terms of because like New Yorkers,
because even if you're not in New York, like even if you're a Republican from Missouri watching this, at least you learned a little bit about like grocery cooperatives. Like at least you learned about policies that you could support and think, oh, that's not so bad. And in the future, maybe it comes up in your area. Maybe you hear about it again. And maybe you think like, oh, that person isn't such a crazy radical for wanting that. I've like heard about that. I think it's a pretty good idea. You know what I mean? This is like, it's just good to talk about good ideas and to like show why they're good.
From what I understand, and I was talking to Chi earlier about this, they are, I guess, more moderate in some senses than what the rest of the country would perceive them as. And there are concerns about safety in general in New York. Now, some of that is because of the hyper focus of the media places on crime, and it makes people think like apps like Nextdoor and the constant crime is happening all around us does have a tendency to cause.
So some of you, sorry, I just want to interrupt. So on the topic of crime, some of you will remember like a couple of years back, there was some report that like shoplifting was skyrocketing. And I think it was like a Walgreens report or something like that, where they said like, oh, the rates of shoplift are skyrocketing. So now we have to install all these security measures. We have to lock everything away in our Walgreens and whatever, right? And I think I think it was just a few months after that, the Walgreens CEO came out and said, okay, our data was bad. It's not a real thing. Like, we're sorry, kind of thing. Like they apologized for but by then the media had already ran with it. And there's still this like insane idea around the whole country that shoplifting is on the rise, and it's purely based on Walgreens producing a fake report that they had to apologize for, and then the media running wild with it. And like, it's, you know, and it's such a like, they've reinforced the narrative so much that like, even Zohran, like, just to like appeal to voters, you now have to appeal to an issue that's a non-issue, just because the media has been like fear mongering about shoplifting so much. And that's it. If you go into Walgreens, if you go into any of those little drugstores, any of those little pharmacies, etc., and shit is locked behind shit, even if you go to like an electronics store, whatever, like, most of that in the last few years is based on a false report by Walgreens and a lot of media hysteria, and people are still treating it like a serious issue. Completely insane. Like, people should be in jail.
Fixate on it. But beyond that, there are issues of crime in the city as well, and obviously outside of safety and public transit, or outside of offering food at a subsidized or cheaper cost, more affordable food, and housing issues, what are some of the other areas where you can tackle crime and explain to New Yorkers that you have their back in terms of safety?
This is absolutely a major priority for New Yorkers. And what our Department of Community Safety would do is not only tackle the mental health crisis, but also hate violence, gun violence epidemic, victim services, and ensure that we are also taking on homelessness. And the thing that's so exciting about this is some of this is built off of programs that have been successful elsewhere in the country, places like Denver, Eugene, Olympia. Some of it's also based on what's been successful in New York City. I mean, gun violence, when you treat it as a public health epidemic.
Stop and frisk.
Right?
We're bringing it back.
No, we're not bringing it back.
Eric Adams,
no.
I misunderstood.
We are not bringing back.
I like how even like the camera people are laughing at Hasan's stupidity.
Stop and frisk. To be very clear. What we are going to scale up are programs.
He's a good himbo. Sometimes he's an intentional himbo. Sometimes he's not so
much.
But
for some reason, they've not been expanded to all of them. Another example I would give you, right? It's a cure violence approach. This is an approach that invests in gun violence interrupters, people who are actually located within the communities that have been racked with gun violence, and who understand that it's not as simple as just putting another police officer on the corner to deal with this kind of an issue, when in fact it's more effectively responded to through these kinds of means. But we have more than 70 police precincts in New York City. These programs are only instituted at less than 30 of them. Mm-hmm. This is something that every New Yorker should benefit from. And
it's good for the cops. They can just sit around and play Candy Crush in their cop cars this time, as opposed to stopping and frisking random people.
The police's responsibility will be major categories of crime. And that is a place where I've also heard from New Yorkers who are saying they're not feeling safe, that they're also troubled by the fact that there are very low clearance rates in a lot of these major categories. And that's where the focus should be, while investing in proven strategies that can actually take on these root causes.
Under the Zohran leadership,
the
New York City police departments, when there's a crime happening, they have to respond, and they actually have to improve their clearance rates. What you're saying. So let's say, I don't know, my car got stolen. Mm-hmm. I call the cops. They don't pick up the phone. I call again. They pick up the phone, and I tell them my car is stolen.
I know, Hasan really likes the Candy Crush.
What the fuck do you want me to do about it? Then they don't actually even seek it out. I find the car myself personally, and then I retrieve it. Under your leadership, that's not happening. They're actually going to, solve crimes.
Yeah, under my leadership.
Whatever they do, I don't know what they do.
Like right now, I'll give you an example right now. You have.
That question is probably unironically making Mamdani a little bit uncomfortable, because he can't be like, yeah, fuck cops, a cab. Like, it's not. He can't, like, obviously, if you're running for mayor of New York, you can't just be like, yeah, cops don't do anything, cops suck, right? But, like, it's really funny to watch Hasan try to be like, yeah, cops don't do anything, right? And then Zohran's trying to, like, give a truthful answer, but also not one that will, like, make cops literally shoot him.
Have the NYPD receiving more than 200
because the NYPD is the most
are not the best
powerful
to
private army in the world.
In fact, not in the way that they've been trained, and also when you hear from NYPD officers, this is not an interest that they have as to fulfilling. I sat down with a family of a New Yorker named Win Rosario, who is a Bangladeshi New Yorker who called 911 because he was experiencing a mental health crisis. And police officers came to his house who had been trained to deal with mental health crises and killed him within 3 minutes. That's the current system that we have. It is one that is not serving any New Yorker. And under my administration, we would have actually proven strategies in dealing with the crises that are affecting so many New Yorkers' lives, and having the police play a critical role in major categories of crimes, not in the ones that they've been tasked with.
Okay, so fair hoppers, we're not beating them up?
No.
That seems like an important role
and I think,
for the New York Police Department.
When we talk about fare evasion, the MTA did its own blue ribbon panel study. that found the greatest correlation between a level of fare evasion in a neighborhood is the level of poverty in that neighborhood.
That's shocking.
Shocking.
So the poorer you are, the more likely you are to
You heard it here
be
first.
able to pay for this critical thing that you need to okay.
And so one of the most
I thought it
effective
was selfishness.
one of the most effective ways to deal with this is when we make buses free.
Yeah.
When we actually make it accessible for every New Yorker. And more than 1 million New Yorkers ride buses every day. Why don't we actually give them back their right, which is to get around the city? And make sure have you
Who
ever
will grind harder if the buses are free? Have you thought about that?
This is a question that keeps me up at night.
Yeah. Because it feels like there'd be too much commerce in
Mm.
that case. And the poor business owners would have to work way harder if there's more people, more foot traffic coming in through their businesses. It seems very careless. It seems very thoughtless. A moral hazard, if you will.
Yeah. I hear you, I see you.
Yeah. Yeah, what about the real estate developers? Let's talk about the unheard minority, the marginalized. People of wealth, POWs. I feel like they're getting a hard bargain here.
People of
you have
wealth.
nothing to say to them.
You know, to all my landlords on the stream, how many landlords do you have?
All of them.
Yeah,
They're all
yeah.
watching.
Shout out to all the boys
They're
at
hate
home.
watching.
Yeah, shout out to all the boys at home.
The real workers.
Yeah, they don't like me very much, and I understand why. Because these are policies that would stop their ability to extract wealth from working class New Yorkers at the levels that they've been enjoying for years. And ultimately, we're talking about a rent freeze, right? They are still collecting rent from New Yorkers.
I think Matt Iglesias had a stroke somewhere. He's not even watching. He just heard that concept be addressed on a live stream and just he had a little baby stroke.
But yeah, I think there are a lot of people who've made a lot of money in the last few years, and those are people who went all in on Eric Adams, and now they're going all in on Andrew Cuomo because they know that if they go for the most corrupt possible leadership, they protect their bottom lines in a way that they have never seen before, and they know that if they actually opt for honest leadership, then it's going to be having to factor in, basic things like dignity for working class New Yorkers when they're figuring out their policies.
Well,
How much of the
dignity.
counterterrorism unit
sounds
would you use
expensive.
on college students that annoy me personally?
I would not be, and I was proud to be the first mayoral candidate. I think the only one.
Like
just-
not even a little bit?
Not even a little bit.
What if they hurt my feelings?
I'm sorry.
What if they hurt an apartheid state's feelings? Like a hypothetical one.
Look, this is the job of a New York City mayor is to keep New Yorkers
Is
safe.
to use counterterrorism
No,
unit against Columbia
no,
students?
no. It's to keep New Yorkers safe. And that's why I said I would not have sent the NYPD onto Columbia's campus or CUNY's campus, because so much of the justification for it was around safety. And that decision made students the least safe they had been in one police officer discharging their weapon in the course of being on that campus.
Cops do that when they're under stress.
Yeah.
It's
Well-
it's a natural reaction.
Look, I think then you make a decision when you send a militarized police force onto a campus. You open yourself up to all of these possibilities. That's not any single one that a New Yorker should have to experience. And multiple kids were hospitalized because of this.
Yeah, because they used flashbang and I believe tear gas as well for crowd dispersal, which is incendiary and it can kill you. And it
Hey, let's be clear. Tear gas is considered a chemical weapon. If you use that in a war, you will be, there will be an arrest warrant by the International Criminal Court. And, that's a war crime. That's a crime against humanity. You don't use chemical weapons. But the police can use chemical weapons against their own people trying to protest peacefully. That's a thing. So just keep that in mind. It's not police everywhere, mind you. I don't think too many police in Japan are using chemical weapons on their own civilians, but the police is basically just a military in America. So that's how we roll. That's how we roll.
has. Cops have killed babies in cribs in the past when they've used.
And again, I shouldn't even say the cops are basically a military. They're worse than a military. Militaries nowadays don't even use tear gas. Like, they don't use chemical weapons. That's something that, like, after World War I, people were like, okay, let's not use, like, mustard gas and, like, burn each other's insides with dangerous chemicals. And that's pretty inhumane. Let's, like, not do that. 'Cause, it's because it's a form of violence where, like, even if you surrender, you're still like dealing with the you know what I mean? Like, once you're tear gassed, there's no opportunity to like turn yourself over or surrender. You're still feeling the pain. It's just like a cruel and unusual thing to do to someone. Especially like these cops already have so many tools at their disposal. Do they really need to use tear gas? Do they really need to chemical weapon their own people? Like, Oh, you're fixing your jewelry box, Vivi. That sounds fun. Entanglement does happen. Yeah, I don't have to apologize either. We're just chilling. I'm just rambling because I just like some of these policies, some of these issues just get me going. We're gonna keep watching this though.
Man, grenades like that. Yeah, probably not the best idea. Okay, you would have you'd be in command of one of the largest standing militaries on the planet. What kind of parades would they do on the streets of New York?
That is the lowest priority.
Okay.
Is figuring out the parade schedule.
You're not giving me anything.
I know.
Zohran.
I know.
I'm
sorry, Javier.
like not even a little bit.
I can't know. What parades do you want?
Put the submarine on a truck and then parade it along.
If that were to happen, would you take the bus with me?
Yes, 100%. And this way, cops would get to walk a little bit, and that's probably the first time they will ever do any physical activity, and therefore they can be more in shape.
I think the focus will be on keeping New Yorkers safe, and I don't think parades really have
Yeah, we all learn a lot from doing these streams. I learn a lot watching this stuff. I haven't watched this before. I'm just reacting like you guys.
to be up there with that.
So you don't like parades? Gay pride parade.
Support.
I almost got you.
Support.
I'm trying to get a gotcha out of you.
Not gonna work on me.
Okay, so the gay pride parades you're on board with, but no cop parade.
No,
They're pretty gay. What about gay cops? They can do a parade?
There are gonna be a lot of parades, but it's going to be after we keep New Yorkers safe.
Okay, they're gonna do a parade, but no submarines. All right. Do you want to bring out the donuts? By the way?
I'm just staring at my attack ads in the face.
Oh, you got the donuts right there.
Take a look at the guys that are going to be spent multi-million-dollar opposition pieces on.
Yo, unironically too, there was a moment in the debate. Because we watched the debate. I don't remember if y'all caught that, but Cuomo was saying like he mentioned something as an attack on Zohran. That Zohran gives platform to people who have questioned 9/11, or I don't know. Cuomo made a reference to Hasan in that debate. This conversation was lightly, vaguely, in the most vague terms possible, because of course Cuomo doesn't want people to actually watch this video and see that it's like a totally reasonable conversation and like funny and enjoyable to watch. But yeah, he made reference in the debate to this because like I can't remember. It was some shit about like what was happening in Palestine or something, where Hasan was just like as like not literally like out of context. Basically, he said like, "Oh man, America deserves fucking terrorism," or whatever like that, right? Like because America was doing terrorism in other places, or it was some comment like that, and everyone took it to mean like, "Oh, Hasan's in favor of 9/11. Like that was the big narrative around it. So that's what Cuomo tried to tie this conversation to, was like Zohran promoting people who support 9/11 or something, something like that. Just insane, just completely insane. But it's funny that Zohran mentions that's what I was thinking, was that when Hasan asked about like the police and stuff like that, like Zohran has to be careful how he answers that. And yeah, he's clearly aware that the attack ads are going to happen. Turns out, I don't know if there were attack ads, but Cuomo did bring it up in the debate, which was pretty funny. It's pretty funny to call Hasan like pro 9/11. Like kind of objectively, and meanwhile they're talking about like cooperative grocery stores when you go watch the interview.
Thank you, man.
What do we got here, Ali?
These are Fairney donuts. Caramel custard, rosewater glaze, pistachios.
Man, I could do that.
You brought 3 for each. Well, so what are we
This
doing?
is abundance.
Are we
Not all for you.
are we gonna try to see who can eat it faster?
No, please.
All 3. Do you work out?
Not for everybody. So
Do you work out?
Not really.
No.
No.
How do you stay in shape then?
Oh, come on.
You're in
Can
great
you say
shape.
that to the camera?
No, you're in
Come on,
great shape.
I need-
I'm not glazing. I'm serious.
But if we were glazing, we'd be making these Fairney donuts.
Yeah.
Because they're glazed.
they're glazed.
Shut up.
All right, I'm gonna try one. Oh my god.
Yeah, he
this looks
did.
great. Cheers.
Rosewater
The two guys
glaze.
who work out allegedly.
Oh, that was bomb.
Man, I want some New York
Fire,
donuts now. You know New York has the sickest donuts.
Yeah. That's great.
It's too good.
All right.
Could I bother you for some water?
No, of course.
Here, you want this?
Yeah.
I haven't used it.
We can, come on. Socialism.
That's a scary word.
Socialism?
Yeah. So you're a socialist? What does that
Democratic socialist, baby.
mean? What does that mean?
First of all, I'm a member of New York City DSA. If that interests you, socialist.nyc/join. Second of all, I define it, using the words of others, of
DSA,
extending democracy from
DSA.
the ballot box to people's lives, of making sure that everybody has what they need to live a dignified life. And that may
know
also
what?
now include Fairney donuts.
Okay. So we're putting Ali to work. He is making these for every New Yorker.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you committed?
All right.
I have a cookie
Scary
here.
word. Is it a scary word in New York?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm a Muslim democratic socialist. I'm used to really bad PR and people being very scared.
Oh, I know. I know about that a little bit.
I think it's scary because people have been taught to fear the word, the idea.
I have a
and also
cookie.
generally the
I'm going to
notion
eat this
that
cookie.
People deserve dignity, that they don't have to earn it every single day. Because to believe that would call into question how we're forced to spend much of our lives, which is on a hamster wheel fighting for the most basic necessities.
Yeah. Meritocracy. Obviously real. Elon Musk worked the hardest and the smartest. Why do you hate the successful, wealthy people like Elon Musk, who clearly have worked very hard
You know, first,
to earn $300 billion?
if we want to credit Elon Musk, we got to also credit some of his greatest assistants in the game, Andrew Cuomo being one of them, who gave Elon Musk about $1 billion in a public subsidy for Tesla many years ago, before Donald Trump even got on the Elon Musk train. And I think that's what's so frustrating about so many of these figures is they masquerade as being.
What did he do with $1 billion of subsidy?
We're still trying to figure it out.
Wait, so what is
This was a subsidy plan to allegedly create jobs, especially in Buffalo, and this was what passed for climate policy under Andrew Cuomo.
did Elon Musk create jobs in Buffalo?
Not at the level that was promised,
What the hell?
and that's a pretty standard Elon Musk story.
Seems like a pretty standard Andrew Cuomo story
Yeah.
as well. Who else? Okay, don't dab me up.
No, sorry, my bad. That's an interesting idea,
I'm
and
an impartial person,
I'm really
and I'm
interested
doing
in-
contentious adversarial journalism.
Can
right
you back
now.
off? Can you back
Yeah.
off with that question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
No
so
doubts, no
Andrew
doubts.
Andrew Cuomo, not a good guy. Why do you
Negative.
have a problem with Italians?
No, I love Italians.
Be honest.
I think that Indians are the Italians of Asia.
I don't even know what that means, but okay.
Do you not feel that?
I don't know where to go with that one. So I'm just okay. Yes,
All right.
I agree. I've always said that. Indians are the Italians of Asia.
And Italians are the Indians of Europe.
Okay.
I don't think there's another way I can go with it, but I think
Yeah.
those are the two flips.
What about Turkish people?
I love them.
What are they what ethnicity can we compare them to?
I'm gonna just leave it here.
This is the most Eric Adams quote thing you've ever said, by the way. Italians are the Indians of Europe is the most Eric Adams statement. What is
act like a mayor if you want to be a mayor.
What is New York City the city that reminds you of other cities?
I think how many cities did he do that with?
I think every single one.
He hit it like 100 different ones.
Yeah.
He hit Islamabad, Zagreb.
Yeah.
He ran out of cities.
Eric Adams does not live in the city, from what I understand.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident he lived in New Jersey for his run for the mayor.
Yuck.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. I live there too. It's awful.
You live in New Jersey?
No, I lived in New Jersey. I went to
like, bro, you should run for mayor in New York City.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there's only one Muslim socialist running for New York mayor. There's not enough space.
There's room.
For both of us.
There's room.
There's not enough room for both
Abundance
of us here.
mindset.
Yeah. Okay, so you keep bringing up abundance mindset. What do you think about the abundance mindset?
Well,
Yeah, you keep bringing it up.
I did this to myself.
Yeah.
Why did I keep saying this? Look, I think the natural.
Say something nice about Ezra Klein and then something mean about him.
Okay, here we go. The thing that I would say is nice about Ezra Klein is I very much appreciated him being willing to bring up what a lot of Americans saw with regards to Joe Biden and the campaign's ability to actually win that race. And it wasn't easy, it wasn't popular. And
Yeah, nobody canceled him for that. That's weird.
yeah,
Everybody yelled at me. I was like, "You're ageist. He's brilliant. He has really good policies, and his brain is fine." That's what they kept saying.
about Ezra Klein?
No, about Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
When I said it, but then when Ezra Klein says it, everyone's like, "Oh, you're brilliant. I love abundance." Anyway, okay, so that's
But when he first said it, he got a lot of heat.
Yeah.
Because he was breaking from, the stated
Mainstream
answer.
position.
I actually think that there's room for kind of a through line between the abundance mindset and what it means to be a democratic socialist, in that one of the greatest obstacles we face is the existing inefficiencies, inadequacies of the public sector. And if we want to get people to trust in the public sector, we have to deliver outcomes that they haven't seen. I mean, if you think about the subway, which we love, Andrew Cuomo built the most expensive subway mile in the world. And he did it by spending more money on consultants than
Swag.
construction. Yeah, swag is how I was going to define it. Yeah. But I mean, this is also an issue where we've taken away public sector capacity to the extent where we're unable to build anything. And we're relying on McKinsey to tell us how to even build a trash can. And what that has left us with is these
What
projects.
will Pete Buttigieg do if you don't rely on McKinsey and consulting firms like that?
I
The next Pete Buttigieg is working right now, and you're hurting his feelings.
I think that what we need to do is make sure that capacity is internal. And that's the capacity that we have lost, whether it's building bike lanes or bus lanes, whether it's building the subways. And that's something we need to bring back. And that's something that there really is a choice between Andrew Cuomo taking us back to those days of consulting or building a future we can build it ourselves.
Okay, suggestion.
Hit it.
no more buses. We only have those horse carts because they're very cool. There's going to be a lot of poop, unfortunately. What do you think? Horse carts, no more cars at all, just horse carts.
I'm gonna go on a strong no on this one. We're gonna diverge.
But
different
horses are
paths.
very cool. They're like big dogs.
Shout out to my big dogs.
Yeah.
Inside every one of you is
a big dog.
a big dog and
horse.
maybe a horse.
Yeah.
And 2 wolves.
That's how I feel.
yeah. Which
you.
one?
Horse, big horse, and a wolf.
Okay.
Okay, so
I don't know if you guys have sound effects.
None of the no horses, no horse race. All right. What about the bike guys? A lot of them are Turkish. This would be huge for the Turkish economy in New York. They do. It's like it seems like it's just 3 professions if you're Turkish in New York or just universally is barbershop,
Awesome. Shout
kebab,
outs.
kebab, guys who do the bikes, who charge you a lot of money. But if you speak Turkish to them, they will charge
When
you
you say
less
do the
money.
bikes, do you mean get on the bikes in the
Do
back
the
and like
bikes.
sightsee, or you mean like deliver food, or you mean...
No. They get on a bike and then you can sit in the back of the bike.
Okay, yeah,
and then
yeah,
they
yeah.
take you to different
Like
places.
Central
They got-
Park, Central Park
They got
guys,
lights
yeah.
in the back.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't seem like a very efficient mode of transportation, but carbon emissions pretty good.
Sometimes, the journey
Yeah.
is the trip.
Yeah.
Is that the phrase? I don't think
I
that's
don't
the phrase.
know.
No, it's like
it's not the journey, it's the destination.
No, I'm saying it's the other way.
Or it's not the destination, it's the journey. Yeah, that's how you're supposed to say it. Okay. Ask him to rank his favorite Sex and the City characters.
Miranda.
Okay.
All-time Miranda.
Okay, it seems you're a little bit biased, I think.
I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Cynthia Nixon.
she endorsed you, I believe, right?
She's supported, but I think
Yeah.
even more than that is she had the courage to take on Andrew Cuomo.
Oh, I
when
love
a lot of
Cynthia
people did.
Nixon.
But this is back in 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was running our subways into the ground.
She's the best.
And she stood up and she said, we're going to tax the rich to fix the subways. And that there could actually be a different style of politics.
Cynthia Nixon, one of the first celebrities to endorse Bernie and AOC as well. And yeah, I believe Cynthia Nixon ran against, was it Eric Adams or was it, I don't remember. She's active though. I really like Cynthia Nixon.
To the extent that Andrew Cuomo had to adopt a lot of her own policies to get reelected.
Yeah.
So what other Sex and the City character has done that?
I don't really remember any of the characters. I'm just reading
Politicians,
questions.
look at you copping out.
I'm just reading from the chat. No, I have watched it. I just don't remember any of the characters. I'm just reading chat right now to see what they want to ask. Chat, if you have any questions, put it in the chat.
I have a question.
Hit it.
Okay.
Shout out to my fellow Casio brother.
Okay. It's famously, I feel like New York City mayor is maybe the worst job in American politics. I'm sure you know this.
I've heard it described that way.
Yeah. Okay. So part of the reason for that, as you know, is because it's incredibly. I mean, the mayor is often kneecapped, right? So if you're walking into this office, right, how do you build coalitions when you're coming in and you have strong opposition in terms of one of the most powerful forces in the city is the NYPD. Right? And we kind of saw what happened during de Blasio's time in office. He had a very tense relationship with them. I think it made promises that he would initially sort of disappear, right? So what kind of coalition are you trying to build as you walk in the door, and how do you grow that coalition?
No, it's a great question, and it speaks to our commitment to not just win the race, but to build a coalition that can govern. And it's easy to look at Eric Adams now and see him as a caricature of a Republican cop and forget how he ran in 2021. He ran in 2021 telling New Yorkers that they didn't have to choose between safety or justice. And there was a large constituency that voted for him that was interested in those questions of not having to choose those two things. And that means there's a constituency beyond just progressives who want to see a different approach to public safety in our city, one that foregrounds evidence-proven strategies that we've seen be successful elsewhere in the country. So I think there is that clear-eyed nature of it. The other thing I would say is being very direct with New Yorkers as to the message and the platform of this campaign. When I go to events, I typically start it off with asking people to finish the sentence as to what we're fighting for. We're going to freeze the rent, to make buses fast and free, to deliver universal childcare. And the reason I want them to know that is I also want them to hold me accountable to that from the very first day that I'm the mayor. Because that accountability, that relationship is one that we have to bring back to get people to actually believe in the possibility of local politics. And I think there's also something else, which is, it's not quite in your question, but I've also just heard it a bunch in a similar vein, is this notion, especially for us on the left, that if we don't run for executive positions, then we're not responsible for what happens. That we are not culpable in the immense contradictions that come with this kind of role. And I fully believe that we're responsible whether or not we're in power. We are still New Yorkers. We are still allowing this to take place. And we are best served by actually grappling with these contradictions directly and doing everything in our power to deliver that which we've seen so many of our neighbors be denied.
Cool.
You like that?
Awesome.
He's a bit of an anarchist. I'm sorry.
No, please. There's room for everybody's questions.
Immediately.
This isn't Andrew Cuomo. I'll take all questions.
It's a give and take. Like, I want cops to have more money and more guns, and he wants less. Which is weird because his job requires him to actively fight against cops, or did.
Legal aid.
Yeah.
Shout out to Legal Aid. Great work.
Yeah.
Shout out to Legal Defenders. Shout out to a friend of mine, Sam McCann. He worked for Legal Defender.
Was he cool? The legal aid guy that he shouted out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cooler than you.
No, a lot of people are cooler than me.
Wow.
It's not saying much.
I think
Okay, I just want to pause and acknowledge Zohran just took like his second bite of the donut. Hasan finished his, he's eyeing another. Hasan is just such an eat guy on every stream. He just has to, it's just his normal thing to be stuffing his face while live. So I'm trying to figure out if Hasan will be such a fatty that he's going to go for the second donut while they're still live streaming, or if he's going to wait till after to go for the second, because he will go for the second donut. It's just a matter of when. So we're going to pay attention. We can take bets maybe. I'm going to bet that he doesn't do it for like a few minutes at least, but I could see him going for one before the video ends. Unless other people are actually supposed to have it. Yeah, I don't know. It's his normal thing to be eating on the stream, so I feel like it's just a matter of time, but I don't know when. I don't think he'll do it yet, because he's kind of been eyeing it and he's unsure, but I feel like he doesn't like have the social like wherewithal to be like, hey, this guy is still taking his first bites. I shouldn't like be finishing my second. I don't think he thinks about that. He probably just thinks about like, I don't want to look like that much of a fatty. He probably thinks about like maybe someone else is going to eat one of these donuts. I don't want to eat someone else's donut, and also I don't want my chat to make fun of me if I eat all the donuts. I feel like that's what's going through his mind right now, but he wants to. Anyway, we'll see how that turns out. Another little subplot to follow.
you're equally cool.
No, it's fine.
Rank choice cool.
Yeah.
Like room for
I'm
both.
cooler than Alex. That's what matters.
That doesn't mean anything.
What about, I mean, there's a couple tougher issues, I think, to broach here.
Oh, God. Where are we going?
I'm not joking anymore. So
Okay.
I would say three things that I want to talk to you about
Nice.
before we let you go, or rather, I think we're going to like walk around a little bit too, right? If you want to do that.
I'm down.
One, immigration. Governor of the state of Texas, Greg Abbott, and even Ron DeSantis shipped in what I think would be considered a human trafficking scheme a bunch of undocumented migrants into
Literally
the
it
state
is.
of New York, specifically to New York City and Chicago as well, in an effort to deliberately disrupt the processing of undocumented migrants that had legal asylum claims, and in an effort to basically undermine the federal structure that already existed in this country. And unfortunately, they did find much success. But I think, especially in a place like New York, the reason why they were able to find success is because of the mishandling of this administration, or the Biden administration, but specifically with Eric Adams. Instead of tackling the problem head on, saying that New York is comprised almost entirely of migrants, that America is a nation of immigrants, and that New York specifically is one of the most diverse places on the planet, and then showing through his work of welcoming the undocumented migrants and processing them, or working with the government to process them expeditiously, I feel like Eric Adams slapped on a Band-Aid solution, and then basically conceded on the messaging front that migrants were responsible for a lot of the visible poverty that people see, and also even the crime that people are experiencing. There's no evidence to suggest that, as far as I know. Maybe in New York it's different, but overall, undocumented migrants are not responsible for a large share of the crimes. As a matter of fact, they're responsible for less crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens are. And yet, this message has persisted. And I think it's one that became, it's one that even New Yorkers themselves adopted, from what I saw. How would you deal with this issue? Like, let's say you were the mayor of New York at that time. What would you have done?
I think the first thing is I wouldn't demonize people that are coming to New York City to call this city their home. And we saw this mayor say that migrants were destroying our city. And you have what's been described as the second largest bully pulpit in America as the mayor of this city. And you're using it to turn the target onto a set of individuals that are in the most need of this city's assistance. And it is something that has led to not only an anti-immigrant sentiment across the city, but even violence against a number of New Yorkers, our newest neighbors. And this isn't just a story of cruelty or a story of demonization and demagoguery. It's also one of patronage politics. You had one of Eric Adams' closest advisors on record saying, "Where are my crumbs?" when it came to the contracts that were being handed out for migrant shelters. You have a city run by Eric Adams that issued a more than $400 million contract, no bid contract, to a company called DocGo So it's not just a question of cruelty. It's not just a question of bigotry. It's also a question of an immense amount of money being made with few services to name actually being delivered. And in the critiques that had to be made of how the Biden administration was responding to New York City's needs, Eric Adams was on his way to DC to make the case and then turned back because his major fundraiser of his campaign was having her house raided by the feds. So you cannot have an effective leader who is not actually focused on delivering on these kinds of issues when their number one priority is keeping themselves and their close associates out of jail.
In terms of hardline policies, though, like what are some of the things that you saw that Eric Adams did that you thought were bad, and what would you have done differently?
All right, so let me rattle off a few. The first is the 30 and 60-day shelter limits that he put in place, forcing them to be evicted out of shelters that were providing them with that. And my office actually worked with more than 1,000 asylum seekers over the last year, partnering with a local organization called Medica, where we would assist asylum seekers with applying for city services like a reduced fare Metro card or a New York City ID. And what we found is that we would see our own clients sleeping on subway platforms who had previously been sleeping on in shelters. Mm-hmm. It did nothing for addressing any of the stated reasons, but what it was is just cruel. The second thing is we have a sanctuary city policy in New York City when it comes to immigration. We have a policy that we should be proud of, one that has survived under decades of bipartisan leadership of the city that Eric Adams has now chosen to demonize. And the city's policy is that it will not allow ICE agents into city schools, hospitals, properties, even properties of city contractors, unless they provide a judicial warrant signed by a judge. Now, I serve on the city's committee in the assembly in Albany, and I get 3 minutes every year to question the mayor. I asked him, would you follow this policy? Will you clarify for New Yorkers that this is the law? He refused to answer it. So what I would also do is establish 100% compliance with that law and establish an oversight commission to ensure that that compliance is being followed even by city contractors. Because the absence of it.
What if you were being blackmailed by the administration because you did a pay-for-play scheme with a foreign government where in order for cheap travel or greatly discounted travel to Turkey, you ended up offering a bunch of amenities, and then you got investigated by the federal government, but then the federal government exchanged hands, and the new government decided, we are going to bring ICE into all of these facilities, into your schools, into Rikers, and you said, oh, great, if you drop my case, I will play ball with you. What about in a situation like that?
That's
not totally hypothetical.
Totally hypothetical. Not sure who you're speaking about, but that would never actually happen to me. And I think that's another concern that we also have with Andrew Cuomo is, there are issues hanging over his head that New Yorkers have a right to be concerned about as to whether it'll impact the way in which he governs this city. And what's so...
No female security detail.
I mean, it's honestly, it's also just so infuriating to be in the Democratic Party and position ourselves as being in stark contrast to the sexual harassment and assault that we have seen endemic in so many Republican leaders, and then offer a contrast in Andrew Cuomo, someone who's been credibly accused by more than 10 women of sexual harassment, and to say that this is just the way politics is going to be, then you obviously end up with the way that people feel a sense of despair.
Yeah, Democrats do definitely have a hypocrisy problem. Well, for two reasons. One, because they do sometimes care about at least being called a hypocrite, whereas Republicans do not. They are unblackmailable in that regard. But also, on top of that, they do sometimes follow through on addressing some of these issues, but then whenever push comes to shove and they feel like there's a powerful person that's about to get into a role, they quickly forget about their past sexual misconduct allegations. But there's more to Andrew Cuomo. Since you're no longer just running against Eric Adams, but also now running against Andrew Cuomo as well, let me ask you this. If given the opportunity, how much Medicaid would you cut from underserved and impoverished state hospital programs, specifically to kill the working poor? Because that's what Andrew Cuomo did, so I'm just trying to figure out, because I feel like that's a qualification to run for.
Yeah, I mean, seemingly the qualification is a complete disregard for working people.
But what if COVID strikes, and then in that process you already underfunded the medical system of New York, and then people, like a lot of old people, die in the process?
In this scenario, is this person also getting a $5 million book deal to write about leadership in that crisis while sending 50,000 people to their death in nursing homes?
That's you got it.
I feel like I know this guy.
No, I'm saying like you understand the role. You understand the role that you need to take.
This is what's passed for leadership in our state, in our city.
Okay, here's a campaign ad. Andrew Cuomo killed your grandparents. No?
I think for a lot of New Yorkers it's true.
I mean, but maybe, okay, we can workshop that one.
No.
All right. Boomer side, Andrew Cuomo.
Boomer side.
Okay, never mind. He did do that, though. I'm saying that. He's not saying that. It's fine.
That's a sneeze to make sure that it was his remarks.
That's just my remarks. Criminal justice reform. Rikers is exploding.
No wonder Cuomo
in
brought this
capacity.
interview up during the
Horrifying
debate.
situation. There's a lot that could be done there. What would you do?
I would actually try and follow the law, which is a stark contrast from Eric Adams. We have a law to close Rikers Island by 2027, and Eric Adams has made it functionally impossible to follow that because of how little he has done over the last few years, except for actually increasing the population of incarcerated New Yorkers. We've had a number of New Yorkers lose their life on Rikers just in these past few weeks. And the last time I visited Rikers, a colleague of mine had an incarcerated New Yorker try to take their own life in front of them. That's the level of despair that we're talking about. And what we would do from the very first day is pursue every single alternative that we have to incarceration to ensure that we're actually keeping New Yorkers safe. Because it's a stain on our city. It's a stain on our country. And it's something that we have been all too willing to allow to continue when we know that it's not just a law, it's also a moral imperative. And, fiscally, if we're talking about the fiscal cost, it costs New York City more than $500,000 a year to incarcerate someone on Rikers. And to put someone in a year of supportive housing, it's about $50,000 a year. Right? There's no
You put him in a
incentive.
penthouse for that kind of price.
That's an incredible amount of money.
I feel like I wouldn't do any crimes if I was in a penthouse.
If you had $500,000, it's a lot of money.
Give me the $500,000, I'm not doing crimes. Why? How about we do that? Give criminals $500,000. Is that a good policy?
I'm going to wait for you to run for mayor to propose that.
Yeah. You do a crime, you're getting $500,000 from me directly. I'm giving it to you.
Not from me.
I feel like that might incentivize people to do crime, though.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that might be an issue.
Yeah. Okay. So we won't do that. All right. Never mind. That's why you're running for mayor, and I'm a stupid Twitch streamer. Okay. I have another question. Israel. What are we feeling? Good? Bad? How are they doing?
Not well.
No, not well.
at all. Look, I think many New Yorkers, far more than the political class would have you imagine, have been rightfully horrified by a genocide that they've seen over more than 15 months.
Good, he's saying the G word.
And I've long stood up for universal human rights and extending them to Palestinians because I think that any politics worth its salt has to be one that is universal, that doesn't draw an exception. And in this country, we've drawn exceptions for far too long, especially when it comes to the application of it to Palestinians.
You're getting dangerously into anti-Semitism territory talking about human rights.
I think according to Andrew Cuomo, because for him, when you stand up for human rights, you are labeled as an anti-Semite. And what it does...
Well, he did, from what I understand, try to be the legal counsel for Benjamin Netanyahu. So he's really busy. I don't know why he's running for mayor. He should just do that instead.
He should just defend war criminals. That's what he should do. And I think that what's so frustrating about this is he's taking a real...
I think that would have been a good line for... I don't know. Do you remember Zohran talking about Cuomo's ties to Netanyahu? Because even most Israeli, especially Israeli Americans don't like Netanyahu, even if they're crazy on the issue of Palestine. They still don't like Netanyahu at all. They think he's like a corrupt careerist, kind of just in it for himself, doesn't give a shit about the hostages, etc. So bringing up the fact that one of Cuomo's most recent things that he's done, other than being a disgraced governor who had to resign for assaulting 13 women, besides that, one of the other main things he's done recently is try to be Netanyahu's legal defense, try to be one of his lawyers. So I don't know, maybe that's something to bring up. I don't know. That's if you really think about that, that's incredibly sketchy. That's like a far right foreign dictator. I mean, nominally not a dictator, but at this point he's canceled all elections. He's not having an election as long as there's wars happening, and he's clearly not letting wars stop. So you have this far right authoritarian doing a genocide, even without the genocide thing, just this far right foreign authoritarian, and Cuomo, who's the Democratic candidate, is gonna be his legal defense. What? You might as well be Trump's legal defense at that point. What's going on? That's brutal. I feel like that's a very good line to attack Cuomo over, because nobody likes Netanyahu.
Crisis of anti-Semitism in our city, and he's weaponizing it purely for personal gain. And that's what he's done. Time and time again, he puts himself before anything, and in the process tries to mischaracterize any New Yorker standing up to say that every single person deserves freedom and justice and safety.
I feel like maybe I'm wrong on this, but New Yorkers, as well as every American, values free speech and due process a lot more than the feelings of people that are falsely conflating an entire religion with an apartheid ethno-state that is doing a genocide. That's just me. I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm off base with this, but it does feel like that to me.
I mean, I think. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The First Amendment is the bedrock of this country. And we have New Yorkers who have been dragged from their apartment building lobby from the hands of their 8-month pregnant wife and disappeared to an ICE detention facility in Louisiana. And his name is Mahmoud Khalil. And he has not been charged with a crime. And yet it took Andrew Cuomo 72 hours to issue any statement. And when he did issue a statement, it was so confusing to know as to whether or not he actually wanted Mahmoud to be released. And then 24 hours later, he actually walked that statement back. And this shouldn't be difficult for anyone to say, which is that you should not be imprisoned for political speech, no matter what that political speech is. And that if you have a government imprisoning people for no apparent crime, and that is still beyond your own reproach, then how can you be trusted to stand up for the city against Donald Trump?
Yeah, I'm trying to find his statement here.
Yeah, please read it out.
Yeah, one thing I will say is, well, Trump seems to like Andrew Cuomo a lot.
And his own words.
That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I understand it because he might see a lot of himself in Cuomo's record.
Yeah. It seems like he wants to really play ball with Andrew Cuomo. I don't know if New Yorkers would be down with that, but
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay, this article's not showing what it is, but okay, never mind. I'm going to give up on this. Oh, Adams and Cuomo dodge questions. Adams, for his part, provided a more muted response. If he has a gun, he needs to go, the mayor said at a news conference about getting firearms off the street. Yeah. There's been no evidence. Wait, he said, he's such a fucking cop, dude. He fantasized about Mahmoud Khalil having a gun?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Eric Adams' video about how to search your child's belongings?
I have seen that video.
He used to look a lot more jacked back then. I don't know what happened.
You don't think he looks jacked now?
No. I think it's...
I have many critiques. I don't think it's
the fake vegan lifestyle. He's not a real vegan.
Are you vegan?
No, not at all. No. But he says he is, and then eats meat.
Shout out to Jabari Brisport, a true vegan.
You know. Okay, I can't find it. Never mind. All right.
That's what Andrew Cuomo wants.
Yeah.
But we'll get
that, and also, he did come out with a bang when he launched his mayoral campaign. Finally, one of the first events that he put together was a Women for Cuomo campaign. That was cool.
Mm-hmm. Ew.
And then also duping a bunch
Women
of
for Cuomo to grab and
unions,
sniff,
or at least union leadership that was sympathetic to him, into bringing their rank and file to a Unions for Cuomo campaign. And apparently, the rank and file didn't even know that they were going to a Cuomo campaign.
Yeah, I read some of those quotes where the guy said, "I just was told to get on the bus. I didn't know where I was going."
Yeah.
I mean, that's what so much of his campaign is. It's mythology. That when it's actually pressed and questioned, you realize it starts to fall apart.
I don't even think people really pay attention to that sort of stuff in general. I think overall, looking at the environment, looking at the media landscape, it's just name recognition. Good or bad, I think name recognition is both harming Andrew Cuomo, but also helping Andrew Cuomo with a lot of people that simply don't know what he's about or how he would be mayor. How do you foresee yourself penetrating through that to not people like myself, because you have a lot of motion online. A lot of people like you online. A lot of people like you on Twitter. Especially younger people, but how do you talk to like the average
the uncles and the aunties?
Yeah, the 55, 65-year-olds that are all around New York City that look at that and go, well, I don't know what this person is, and his name sounds scary to me. I've never heard this name before. Andrew Cuomo, I kind of recognize that.
I mean, people have been voting for Cuomo's for decades.
Yeah.
Because before Andrew Cuomo, there was his father, who was the governor of this state. And
his handsome brother. But they didn't vote for him.
No.
I would vote for, not for mayor.
For what position?
I don't know.
Okay.
Just he's a himbo. I have himbo solidarity.
That's why I tried to call it a himby in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I got
nobody,
no,
people got it.
I got it.
This wasn't a good joke. Okay. Yeah, I just got to get over it. I thought it was clearly no one understood it. But I actually think it's an opportunity because we're in second place in the polls while more than 50% of New Yorkers do not know who I am or who this campaign is, which means there's such a high relationship between people who support this campaign once they actually know about this campaign. And so what our task is to keep introducing it. Now, we've raised $8 million. We've maximized the fundraising cap, which is the fastest any campaign in history has done it. We have knocked on more than 40,000 doors in the last 6 days. We're going to knock on 1 million doors across New York City. A lot of that is introducing ourselves to the uncles and aunties that you're talking about. And then also, we are going to spend a lot of the money that we've raised on ads on cable and broadcast and radio and mailers in your mailbox, because so many, especially older New Yorkers, that is the way that they're engaging with politics. And I have to incorporate that as well as any other place that I could meet New Yorkers for whom Andrew Cuomo is the name of stability, to inform them actually that he is the chaos. We are the ones that will provide that stability by stabilizing their rent, by ensuring that it's frozen, and by making sure they can actually afford the city.
Okay, I like that.
No, see, I was about to give a donut update. I think because that other dude took a donut off the plate, it scared Hasan away. Like Hasan
Yeah.
started fearing that if he ate one of these donuts, then one of the other people watching them would be like, "Hey, that's my donut," or something. You know what I mean? I think it scared him. I think he realized that the donuts are for other people too, and not just him. It took him a while, but I think he like came to that conclusion. So he's like eyeing them, but he's like, I can't.